This is Garis, Masculist, MGTOW flyers. That is 2-3 page essays on the themes of Masculism and MGTOW. Written by and read aloud by Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. This is flyer number 729, part 2, entitled, It Takes a Country to Raise a Child. Carrying straight on. To overcome this problem, the Masculists are proposing the MCT, that's Mother Career Timeline, which is a methodology that allows a woman to be both a careerist and a mother. That is, she has her 2 kids, thus fulfilling her civic duty to create the next generation, as well as being a FIP, so that she does not manslave and divorce rape a man, which are things the Masculists will not tolerate. One of the dominant factors behind the reasoning of the MCT is the reality that about 1/3 of women are already infertile by the age of 30, which is a fact that shocked me when I first came across it. So, women need to have their 2 kids before the age of 30 if they are not to run out of reproductive years, and hence not fulfill their civic duty to have their 2 kids per woman. So the Masculist MCT goes as follows, in brackets, taking the case of an upper middle class woman smart enough to get a master's degree, close brackets. She gets that degree at the age of 23. For the next 3 years she works in her career competent profession, making good money, making contacts and gaining experience. During that time she marries and has her first kid at age 27 and her second at 29. When her second kid is off to kindergarten at age 4, she returns to her career at the age of 33. During the 6 years that she is at home raising 2 small children, the government pays her a substantial motherhood wage, equal to what she was earning before she quit her job to be a mother. To be able to afford this substantial amount of money, governments will need to budget for this tax. It will be extremely expensive because there will be millions of families involved. Society has no choice but to pay this tax, since men, masculisted men, will continue to refuse to marry and have kids if the divorce courts continue to operate under the fluffy model, that is, seeing women as fluffies who have to be paid for before and after the divorce by men, by fathers. Men, masculisted men, will totally refuse to accept this model and will go to war to stop it. Masculists see fluffydom as man's slavery, as divorce rape, and hate it with a passion. It is a war issue to Masculists. So, Masculists will not be fathers unless the gender laws and society are made fair to men. Masculists have a whole political program to reform society, to restructure society, before they are prepared to be fathers again. This political program involves the fipping of women, the creation of a FIP society so that all women become FIPs and stop manslaving and divorce raping men. Otherwise they'll be spat at by Masculists and forced to rot on the shelf, manless, loveless, sexless, babyless, utterly rejected both socially and sexually. The Masculists want the creation of GECs, Gender Equality Committees, in the parliaments that consist half of female feminist politicians and half of male masculist politicians, so that the gender issues of both sexes are dealt with equally, which is far from being the case today in a culture which is so brainwashed by feminism that gender oppression is a one-way street. that most monoconscious feminists scream at the idea that women oppress men worse, making these women hated by masculists, who see them as hypocritical bigots and totally ignore them to death, not even pumping and dumping them. The masculist half of these geeks will push for the fipping of women. They will legislate the para, that's paternity rejection right, so that men are given the same right to reject an unwanted pregnancy as women have. The fact that women have the MARA, that's maternity rejection right, aka abortion right, but men don't have the para, makes masculists scream at this massive gender political injustice. Millions of men are forced into undesired paternities due to the lack of the para. The third of the masculist big three is women's forced fathering, where women, by their pill lying or their paternity fraud, manslave men for 2 decades to pay for a kid he never wanted in the first place, and in the case of paternity fraud, is not even his. If governments do not give women a hefty maternity wage, then millions of men will not be prepared to be fathers, since they will not be willing to be the sole breadwinner of the family while the woman, the mother, is at home for the 6 years she is raising the 2 kids. These men will consider the stress of being the sole breadwinner to be too high. Governments will have to pay the maternity wage so that millions of couples do not choose to not have kids. If they must halve their income, if the mother does not have an income when she stays at home looking after very small children. Masculists see fluffydom as manslavery and divorce rape, and are out to exterminate fluffies and fluffy feminists by totally ignoring them to death. Therefore, men, masculisted men, have the power to force women to fib up or to rot on the shelf. But the next generation needs to be grown and raised, and for that, mothers need to be with their kids when they are small, before they go off to kindergarten at age 4 years. With 2 kids, that's a time period of 6 years. With the gender laws men fared, and with the maternity wage, men will be a lot more prepared to be fathers again. So politicians, especially the gender politicians in the GECs, need to be very conscious that if society is to survive, if populations are not to be wiped out, then they must bite the bullet and legislate the creation of the substantial maternity wage, which will cost how much? ? Let's do a back of the envelope calculation on the cost of the maternity wage. We make some basic assumptions to derive a ballpark figure. Assume the mother is given an amount of $50,000 per year for 6 years. We calculate the case for the US, which has a population of about 350 million people. Assume the life expectancy of a US female is 81 years, is in brackets, using Microsoft's Copilot, close brackets. There are about 175 million females in the US population. For the fraction 6/81 of these females, they will be paid by the government $50,000 a year. That totals 175 times 6/81 times $50 billion per year. That is roughly 650 billion a year. That is nearly 2/3 of $1 trillion per year. The US defense budget is about $800 billion per year, which is not a lot higher. So we are talking about a, in capital letters, major expense when it comes to the maternity wage budget. But with it, society will be able to raise a child, that is, enough children to avoid a population collapse. Thus one could say that it will take a country, that is, a country's taxes, to raise a child, which is the title of this flyer, and probably the most important political message of this century. Politicians need to learn that men will refuse to marry and be fathers unless the gender laws are men-fared. Today's divorce courts are toxic for men, so 2/3 of young men now refuse to marry and reject paternity. This obviously cannot continue, or a few generations from now there will be no more humanity. Women will need to be fipped, the gex will need to be created, and mothers will need to be given a maternity wage, otherwise we die out. This wage will cost countries an amount comparable with their defence budgets, but that is the inevitable price to be paid if we are not to go extinct. Cheers. Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. Email profhugodegaris@yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. Click on the Masculist tab for 720 plus Masculist essays and their videos. Google the terms London Real and Hugo de Garis to see videos on Masculism at AI Will Kill 1 Billion People. Do we create our exterminators? Professor Hugo de Garis - London Real brackets. See the last half hour of this 2-hour interview for the Masculist segment, as well as Countdown to Extinction, How AI Will Exterminate Mankind, again for the last 40 minutes on Masculism. These flyers are available in text and video formats on Minds, BitChute, Odyssey, MGTOW.tv, X and YouTube. I have nearly 1,000 Masculist videos in 15 playlists on YouTube that can be accessed by searching for the channel name De Garis Masculist Videos. That's all one word. All 1,000 of my Masculist videos in one long list in most recent first time order can also be found on X by searching the channel name De Garis Masculist Videos. That's 4 words. Ciao.